Get us grounded so that we can get started.
Buenas tardes a todos, mi nombre es María Angélica y hoy con mi colega Flavia y Rose vamos a proveer interpretación en criollo haitiano y en español con MARP Language Services para asegurarnos de que este espacio sea accesible para todas las personas. Entonces, las personas que estamos dentro del Zoom, en unos momentos vamos a ver la interpretación en la parte de abajo para que puedan elegir el idioma que desean. Si usted está mirando en vivo y quiere escuchar esta información en español, puede llamar al número 786-665-8802. Muchas gracias. Good afternoon. My name is Maria Angelica, and today I will be providing interpretation alongside my colleagues Flavia and Rose with MARB Language Services. And if you're inside of the Zoom, to make sure that the space is accessible to all. We will be providing interpretation through the Zoom feature if you're inside of Zoom. So at the bottom part of your screen, you will see the feature turned on in a few moments and you can choose your language of choice. And if you are watching live and you would like to listen to this information in Spanish, you can call the phone number 786-665-8802. And throughout the presentation, this number will also be at the bottom of the screen. Thank you very much. And now I'll pass the mic to Rose.
Bonsoir tout le monde. Donc, non, moi, c'est Rose Nicholson. Et donc, moi, je fais partie de l'équipe MARB Language Services avec Maria Angelica, avec Flavia qui va traduire pour nous en espagnol et moi-même, je vais traduire en créole haïtien. Et donc, raison qui fait nous faire ça, c'est parce que dans nos langues justice, nous avons que tout le monde participe dans la langue qui est plus confortable avec l'IA. Et donc, si toutefois que nous avons entendu toute information que nous pouvons joindre aujourd'hui, dans langue créole haïtienne, tant pis, relais numéro ça, 305-901-2692. Si que nous avons participé dans Zoom et que fonctionnement, le nous mettez fonctionnement, nous avons un globe en bas et puis donc nous avons choisi interprétation et langue que nous avons entendu. Donc en créole, nous avons choisi français parce que dans Zoom, pas gagné créole haïtien qu'on y a là. Et si que nous avons entendu dans la langue espagnole, naturellement, nous avons les numéros espagnols que Maria Angelica se bat tout à l'heure là. Et donc, moi, souhaitez nous et bonne écoute pour après-midi.
Thank you so much, Maria Angelica and Rose. Good evening, everybody. My name is Brittany Farrell. I am an organizer and policy associate with Black Futures Lab. I want to thank everyone for tuning in this evening for us to have this very important conversation about police and policing in our communities. Tonight, we are going to talk about solutions and reimagining what safety looks like for our communities. And I cannot wait to get into this lineup of speakers that we have. We have some really incredible organizers from some really great organizations that are doing work around policing in Black communities. And you all are going to learn a lot. So I cannot wait until we get into it. But before we do, I do want to let you know that we have the Whiskey Chick who's going to be doing our DJ sets. So you want to stay tuned in for that. We'll have a set in the middle and towards the end so we can have a little dance session. That's kind of break up some of this content. We're going to need it, trust me. So don't go anywhere on our breaks. Let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to have this conversation around policing, but it's very important for us to first talk about some of the history around policing. So I'm super happy to introduce Nubian Roberts. She's a criminal justice organizer with New Florida Majority. So Nubian, I'm going to hand it over to you so that you can talk to us a little bit about the history of policing in America.
Greetings, everyone. 1 second. I'm sorry, I'm just having a little difficulty with my computer.
While we're waiting on Nubian, I do want to let you all know that if you have any questions, drop it in the Q&A. We will have about 10 minutes towards the end of the program to answer some questions from our guests.
Hello?
Hey, April, how are you? It's Khalil Thompson.
Go back on. This is so horrible. Okay. All right. Video. But I can't hear it now.
Can you hear us, Nubian?
Yes, I can hear you. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, everybody. I don't know what happened, but that was crazy. But yes, thank you. Greetings. I'm so glad to finally be with you all. I apologize. I have my son, he's 15, in here trying to help me out. But yes, let's talk about policing and the community. Well, first of all, I do work in criminal justice, and I'm very happy to be working in that field. I've passed a couple of laws here in Tallahassee for incarcerated women, and I'm truly excited about that. Right now in here, we are in Duval County dealing with a lot of police brutality and police murders. And I, along with other organizations like JCAC, my organization, the New Florida Majority, Northside Coalition, we've all been working alongside the mayor, the state attorney, and the sheriff to try to hold the police department accountable for the things that are happening in our communities. Our communities are over-policed. We have a lot of the highest rates of our children at 18 being pulled over for a simple, a simple traffic stop, and then, somehow, some way losing their lives. So we're fighting for a lot of injustices. But I'll start by talking about the history of policing. Slave patrols began in the 1700s to surveil enslaved people and capture runaways. Following the Civil War, Southern police departments and terrorist organizations and corrupt, excuse me, I'm sorry. I lost my screen. Continued to surveil and oppress Black communities throughout the Jim Crow era. Police enforced segregation and voter suppression laws. In 1965, Philadelphia introduced a militaristic SWAT teams, which in 1985 bombed the Black cooperative move. During the 1970s, states began writing law enforcement officer Bill of Rights to further protect officers against accusations of misconduct. The Reagan administration ushered in a war on drugs, justifying the militarization of police departments, further surveillance and incarceration of Black communities. In 1991, LA's police brutality assaulted Rodney King when the officers escaped punishment despite a video evidence. In 1992, race riots were followed. I actually was there for those riots. Police presence in the public schools has exploded since the 1990s, where Black children are further criminalized. In the 2000s, the 1033 program allowed police to purchase weapons and gear from the US military. Police forces have continually been mostly whites, males. Black men are 2.5 times more likely than white men to die in a police encounter. Police drivers are consistently more likely than white drivers to be pulled over, and fewest Black drivers are stopped at night when it is difficult to determine race. A 2017 study found that Blacks are 3 times more likely to be stopped for jaywalking in Jacksonville, Florida. Considering drug possession, Black people are 3.5 times more likely to be arrested and 5 times more likely to go to jail. The Department of Education in 2016 found the Black students are 4 times more likely to be suspended. This has to change, y'all. But I thank you so much for your time, and I apologize for all of my technical difficulties, but I wish you all a great weekend, and thank you for having me. Have a great evening.
Thank you, Nubian, for giving us some of that history and some of those stats. I know that it's really important for people to begin to understand that these demands to divest and defund policing did not just come out of thin air. There's a long history of the police oppressing, abusing, and terrorizing Black communities. So that's definitely appreciated. Speaking of divesting, I'm super happy that we have Vanny from Dream Defenders on with us tonight to talk a little bit about what are we divesting from. So Vanny, I'm gonna turn it over to you so that you can get into what is this divesting? What does it mean? Where is it coming from? Maybe tell us a little bit about police budgets and removing police from schools and how much it's costing us and all that good stuff. So I'm gonna hand it over to you and you can take it from here.
Thank you, Brittany. Welcome everyone, and thank you for having me. My name is Vanny. I am an organizer with the Dream Defenders in Miami squad. As Brittany mentioned, we're talking about divesting. So where are we divesting from? Like I said, I'm a Dream Defender. We are an organization of young people who are organizing to create a future where police and prisons do not need to exist. Okay, and the demands that you're hearing of divestment, what we're talking about is divesting from police. Okay, because what we feel is that police budgets are overinflated and really not necessary to truly keep our community safe. So if you see here, we have a budget breakdown of the Miami-Dade police budget from 2019 to 2020. Like I said, I live in Miami, so I chose to talk about Miami because it's what I'm more familiar with. Now, one thing that we should know when we're looking at budgets is that the numbers that you see are usually in the thousands, meaning that you need to add 3 more zeros. So if you look at it, you think it would be 759,072, but it's really $759,072,000. Okay, and we see that the budget is split into 4 portions: the police services, investigative services, administration, and support services. So administration, they're responsible for managing the police station, for to review litigation cases, to provide counsel for any cases that police are involved in, and that any of their employees are involved in. And they're also like a liaison for other organizations, like government organizations, for any type of legal needs that they may have. So like I mentioned, the administration manages, like the legal matters of the department and of their employees. So if we look at the next screen, we'll see that part of what they manage is also the payouts for settlements when it comes to like use of force complaints, or any civil, like any misconduct complaints that they maybe brought against them. Now, to actually find how much money is spent on that is pretty difficult. I'm not gonna lie to you. I did a lot of research. You have to do like a public records request and pay some money, which it can be pretty expensive to even find out how much money is spent on these settlements. So when I did my research, I was able to find that like in 2019, here in Miami, we paid $65,000. And when I say we, I mean the community, because this is our money. We paid $65,000 of taxpayer money for a use of force complaint against this captain, Javier Ortiz. He actually has like over 40 civilian complaints against him. And then when we look at payouts from 2010 to 2014, in Miami-Dade, $3.1 million was spent. So if you look in the police budget, there's a portion called the self-insurance fund, and it's basically like the county's insurance program for like any type of like litigation needs that they may have where there's going to be a payout. So mainly where the money comes for these police settlements are from like property taxes. So if we look at the next slide, we're going to see another portion of the budget is the support services. So this is where like, you know, like the 9/11 costs come in, like support for like processing evidence, like coordinating trainings, things of that nature come from this department. And if we look at the next slide, it would be police services. So these are, you know, like your basic cops out in the street patrolling, you know, who are here to quote unquote prevent crime. I mean, if you look at, you know, a lot of statistics, what you really see is that they can exacerbate crime. But so that's police services is really about just, you know, street patrol. And then we have investigative services, which is, you know, like your more official department where police conduct like investigations, collecting evidence and intelligence, things of that nature. So I'm sorry if you could go back. Sorry about that. There's like a slide that was skipped. Sorry if you could go back again. No, I'm sorry, if you can go back. Yeah. Sorry about that. Okay, here, yes. No, the revenue, I'm sorry. The next slide. There, yes. Okay, so if we look at the revenue by source, first of all, what we should be looking at is the fact that this is the money that the police department is expected to make. Because when they are presenting these budgets to the county, not only are there expenses, but there are projected earnings. Because remember, this is a business. So if we look, we see that the projected amount was like budget is less than what we see the total revenues are going to be, because like I said, they need to make money. So it was like about like a $10 million difference. So if we look, we see that like the main sources of revenue for the police come from countywide taxes and then like unincorporated dade taxes, because there's like municipalities within Miami that don't count in like the county. So, you know, like the revenue for them comes from like gas taxes, property taxes, like from the jail, like the operation of the jail, they make money, parking tickets, like water and sewer management, public transportation. All these things like are part of like the county-wide taxes and the municipality taxes, and this is where like the police draws their income from. Okay, so if we continue on, we'll see the different ways that the police have been militarized. Like it was mentioned previously by Nubian, there are certain programs that have assisted in the militarization of police, federally funded programs. So if we continue, we'll see here the first program that has helped contribute to that would be the 1122 program. So this program is managed by the Department of Defense, and it basically allows states and units of local government to access all these like supplies of like police like equipment that includes weapons and things of that nature, and it allows them to purchase this equipment to meet with requirements from the Homeland Security. Okay, so through this program, you know, like we've seen our like county and local jurisdictions becoming extremely militarized. So the next program that has like contributed to a lot of the militarization would be the 1033 program. So if you go to the website of this program, you will see that they very blatantly have on their website that it says that since 1997, over $7.4 billion worth of property, aka like, you know, equipment, weapons, etc., have been transferred over to like local police departments through their program. Okay, so basically through this program, they are the military is able to transfer surplus or excess equipment that they may have over to local police departments, and all they need to do is pay the shipping. So basically they're getting military grade weapons, and all they need to do is pay the shipping, you know. So in 2020, and the statistics that I was able to look over, from the beginning of 2020 to April, over $3 million had been spent. And in 2019, over $20 million were spent giving money to like, into law enforcement, like into like the worth of all of the equipment that was put into law enforcement. So these programs are like a huge contribution to why they're so heavily militarized. Now, if we go on to like the Homeland Security grants, these are grant programs that, sorry, if you could like continue. Oh, yeah. These are like grant programs that like through FEMA, like you think of FEMA and you think, okay, yeah, they help avert disasters. But it like when it comes, respond to disasters when it comes to like nature, things like that. But they also are meant to like help respond to all types of disasters, including like, threats to like national security. So like FEMA allocates over $1 billion in grants to help respond and recover from acts of terrorism. Okay, and FEMA is managed by Homeland Security. So they help through these grants support state, local, and even tribal territories in being prepared against any types of threats. Also in urban areas, because they consider them like high threat areas. And they also contribute in like helping with the cooperation within like local, state, and tribal jurisdictions with like customs and like the U.S. Border Patrol. So a lot of money is put in by the nation to help contribute to these institutions. So in 2019, the state Homeland Security to Florida, only to Florida, gave over $10 million for the state. And then for urban area security in Miami and Fort Lauderdale, it was 7 million. In Tampa, 3.25 million, and then in Orlando the same. So what's included in these grant programs, what they're able to purchase, because they have like little stipulations, they're able to buy drones, explosives, armored vehicles, protective gear, etc. Which is why you see in these protests that are being publicized now, you're seeing all these local police ready for war. So thank you. We can continue on. So like it was mentioned by Nubian as well in the previous slides, since the 90s, public schools have become extremely policed and militarized when it comes to like like the equipment and things that the police are carrying. So here in Miami-Dade County, the names of the school police, they're called school resource officers. Now that name could obviously be debated, but to fund a SRO is what they're called colloquially. To fund one here in Miami, it costs $120,000. And each year after, it costs $65,000 to fund them. So initially, like the first year, it's a certain amount, and then it's less as the years continue. So in 2019 to 2020, more than $54 million were spent on SROs. Okay, so if we go on to the next slide, we'll see that in Miami-Dade County Public Schools, there's a certain mandate for how many SROs they need to have. So after the Parkland shooting, where I might add, the police that was present at the school actually ran away from the danger and was actually fired because he did not respond to protecting the students. But after that school shooting, Florida mandated that all schools should have at least one SRO. So in Miami-Dade County Public Schools, there are 392 schools, but there are currently 454 SROs. So there's clearly in excess of school resource officers present at the schools. So if we look from 2017 to 2018, before Parkland, 99 resource officers. 2018 to 2019, in 271 amount increase, it went to 370. And then from 2019 to 2020, 454 SROs in total. And now this year, they are trying to increase them even more. So they're very clearly over their limit. So if we go over to the next slide, thank you. We'll see the mental health allocation for Miami-Dade County Public Schools. Okay, so the recommended amount for these like school counselors, school psychologists, social workers, you know, these support staffing that I feel actually offer students resources, you'll see that the industry recommendation amount is nowhere near the amount that is actually present in the schools. Okay, so in Miami-Dade County Public Schools in 2019, the budget for like mental health resources was $7.8 million, and they hired 30 new hires. And in 2018 to 2019, 89 schools in Miami-Dade didn't even have a counselor. Okay, so we're seeing clearly what is being prioritized and what budget is being overinflated and over considered. Okay, so if we continue on to the next slide, we'll see the sources for the Miami-Dade County Public School budget. There's the Safe School Allocation Fund, which is like over $22 million, 22.9. Then the Facility Security Grant, over 12 million. Then the Hardening Grant Allocation, over 6. And then there was a referendum that was supposed to be used to hire new teachers this year, but was actually used to get more SROs. And again, we are over the recommended amount by the state by over 100. But we use that money to get more SROs instead of getting more teachers or maybe more, mental health support for the students. And we're also going to look at the fact that, if you count all of those monies, it is 44 million, just about. But like I mentioned in the previous slides, over $54 million were spent. So where did the rest of that money come from? Which is something that local organizers here are asking themselves. So if we can continue on to the next slide, we'll see the damage that the high amounts of police presence in schools does to our youth. So we see that in 2017 to 2018, there were 3,202 youth arrests of children. 88 were charged as adults. 72 were eligible for civil citations, and 277 of the arrests were in Miami-Dade County Public Schools. So if we look at the representation for like the racial representation in Miami-Dade County Public Schools, there's 20% of the entire population of students were Black in 2017 to 2018. Now, 37% of all the citations given were to Black students. 52% of all the arrests were of Black students. 58% of the disorderly conduct arrests were of Black students. 47% that were diverted from being arrested were Black students. 65% of the residential commitment, which is kind of like a form of like a stay-at-home order, like a house arrest type of thing, 65% were Black students. 76% of all the arrests of those that were charged as adults were Black students. Yet Black students make up 20% of the population of Miami-Dade County Public Schools. There's clearly a problem. And these statistics are gotten directly from ACLU, and they do a lot of advocacy all over the nation for systemic and systematic racism. So we continue on. Okay, yeah. So that is it. Thank you all very much, and I hope that my presentation, shows you all what we prioritize when it comes to our budgets and what we actually need to be safe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vanny, for breaking it down for folks and letting folks know when folks demand divestment from policing and defunding from policing, it's because we know the money is there. Vanny used an example of their hometown in Miami-Dade, but I'm sure if you did your research on your city, wherever you're from or wherever you live, you wouldn't be surprised to see that they're probably spending millions of dollars on policing as well. So later on in the program, you're going to see what folks are asking for, divestment from policing and invest into what? What does that look like and what does it mean and why is it important? But right now we're gonna get into a DJ set. So we have DJ Whiskey who is going to be spinning for us. So let's just take about 10 minutes, jam out, listen to some music, do what you need to do, and we will be back here to talk a little bit more about policing in our communities.
Whatever you need, anything you want done, baby, I'll do it naturally. 'Cause I'm every woman, it's all in me. It's all in me. You can tell, mix a special groove with fire inside of you. Anytime you feel danger or fear, then instantly I will appear. Oh, I'm every woman, it's all in me. Anything you want done, baby, I do it naturally. To the seas, I can make a rhyme, no confusion in your mind. And when it comes down to some good old-fashioned love, I got it, I got it, I got it, got it, baby, baby. I'm every woman, it's all in me. Anything you want done, baby, I do it naturally.
The Whiskey Show.
My eyes take me to the clouds. rocking with the Whiskey Chicks.
We run this mother. We run this mother.
It's the Whiskey Chicks.
Who run the world? Girls. Who run the world? Girls. Who run the world? Girls. Who run this mother? Who run this mother? Who run this mother? Who run this mother? Who run the world? Girls. 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 Some of them men think they freak this like we do, but no they don't. Make your check come at their neck. Disrespect us, no they won't. Boy, don't even try to touch this. Boy, this beat is crazy. This is how they made me. Houston, Texas, baby. This goes out to all my girls up in the club, rocking the ladies. Who will buy it for themselves and get more money later? I think I need a barber. None of these can play me. I'm so good with this. I remind you I'm so hood with this. Boy, I'm just playing. Come here, baby. Hope you still like me if you pay me. My persuasion can build a nation. In this hour, the blood we can devour. You'll do anything for me.
You are now rocking with the Whiskey Chicks. You are now rocking with the Whiskey Chicks.
L'argent est fini, en tout a changé de côté, oh. Maribana, elle a changé de côté, oh. Nangere, nangere, wa. Nangere, nangere, wa. Nangere, nangere, wa. Nangere, nangere, wa. Dieu merci pour moi, je savais chanter un peu, oh. J'ai fait ma cassette, oh, on peut voir.
All right, you all, we are back. I hope you all had a good jam session. I know I did. I was over here dancing. I saw somebody drop, they was drinking some bourbon in the chat. I know that's right, y'all. All right, so before we get into talking about investing into Black communities, I want to introduce Christina from Jacksonville Community Action Committee to talk to us a little bit about the Law Enforcement Bill of Rights and a little bit about what an oversight board looks like and what that means for our communities. So Christina, thanks for being here with us this evening. I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. Like you said, my name is Christina Kittle. I'm with the Jacksonville Community Action Committee. We are a grassroots organization fighting for Black liberation in the South. So the first thing I am going to be talking about is the Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights. So the name is exactly as it suggests. I'm a civics teacher, so I teach children all day about our Bill of Rights, you know, our constitutional protections, our due process protections under, as a citizen. Everybody has them, including police officers, because they are citizens of the United States. However, in the state of Florida and in 14 other states, law enforcement has an extra layer of due process protection. So if you ever suspected the cops are above the law, they are. They literally are in Florida and 14 other states. So if you look deeper into the Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights, I know in Florida it states statute 112.532, not sure what it's like in other states, but they're pretty similar across the board. It gives them some pretty sinister advantages, so that if you're ever wondering why they're not held accountable for their crimes, it's explained pretty well in this law. So this law came about right at the same time that the Black Power movement and the LGBTQ and women's rights movements were kicking off in the United States in the late 60s and early 70s. It makes sense when you think about it, because if there's a social movement going on, or if the people are showing some kind of movement, the powers that are trying to protect the status quo are also going to be kicking up into full gear and making moves as well. So these laws came about at the exact same time, and some of the details there just really upset me, and I know they will upset you too if you look deeper into it. I know in our Leo Board, it basically talks about the officers get to choose the other officers that sit on their review board. So you have these internal investigations, but not only are they just cops investigating themselves, they also get to choose the police officers that are investigating them. So it's usually their best friend on the force, and then they find out that nothing is wrong and then they're innocent. The other thing they get to do is they get to have access to all the evidence, as well as a cooling off period. So if you or I or any civilian committed a crime or, killed somebody, we would be going to jail and waiting for our trial, but not for the police. They actually get this cooling off period where they have access to evidence, where they get to build their case and just basically get to chill at home. So Jacksonville Community Action Committee and other organizations are fighting to basically repeal these laws, and any state that has one of these definitely should be doing the work as well. I know that a bunch of cities across the nation are joining to do this. So we're doing things, we're campaigning, we're tabling. Ultimately, it's going to take legislators to get rid of a law like that. And we are the ones who influence the way that our legislators work. So that is a movement to try to abolish the Law Enforcement Officers' Bill of Rights. Once that's out of the way, what we are fighting for is community control of the police. So community control of the police is a very specific demand. And for us, it looks like the creation of a Civilian Police Accountability Council, or a CPAC. So there's a lot of confusion when we talk about community control of police and a CPAC versus the already existing models of citizen review boards. Current citizen review boards don't really have the power to do much of anything. The only thing that they can do is review the investigations that the officers are already launched on themselves. So the officers do their internal investigation, they find, hey, nothing's wrong, everybody's innocent. And then all the citizen review boards can do is just look over that. And they can't really change the outcome of it or launch external investigations. CPAC is basically a board that has the power to launch external investigations. Also, the structure of a CPAC would be radically different from the existing citizen review board structure. As it stands right now, citizen review boards, the mayor usually appoints people to sit on them. And it's usually ex-officers or people who are related to law enforcement, so wives of officers and things like that. A CPAC would be democratically elected civilians, so civilians being the key word, no relation to law enforcement, no ex-cops, none of that. So they would be democratically elected by each police district, so people we trust, and they would then serve on this board instead of the mayor appointing them. They would have the power to do external investigations, as well as subpoena evidence, testimonies, and complaints of misconduct by officers. As it stands right now, there's no other structure that can do that. Only the police are the ones that can subpoena evidence. So things like body camera footage, where they're the only institution that have access to it. They hold it for days. They have the chance to edit it, look over it, and nobody else does. That's a huge problem. But if you have a CPAC, they would also be able to have access to that kind of evidence. They can review and amend hiring practices for the police department. They have a say on the budget, so how much money the police get. In a lot of cities, Miami's was pretty bad, but Jacksonville is also bad. And I know pretty much across the board, the police make a huge chunk of city budgets. And if you have a CPAC, they would also have a say in capping how much the police can make. The other things that they would have the power to do is suspend and terminate officers found guilty of misconduct. So when we talk about community control of the police, we're not talking about just the already existing model of a citizen review board. We're talking about a civilian police accountability council that actually has the teeth to bite back. So this idea for community control of the police, it was already mentioned earlier in this presentation that this is a national thing. There's a lot of cities mobilizing for police accountability. So we didn't just come up with this idea. So the National Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression is a group that started when Angela Davis was arrested and accused was a political prisoner, and it started as the group that tried to get her out. Did successfully. This organization, though, realized that it's not just something that happened to Angela Davis, it's something that we see all the time. And as we moved on, we started to see, with Trayvon and in Ferguson with Mike Brown, children are also being targeted for doing, nothing, just walking with a bag of Skittles, or maybe they made a mistake and were shoplifting, whatever, they're dying by the hands of the police, and the police are getting away with it. So in November of last year, the Jacksonville Community Action Committee and thousands of others went to Angela Davis's call to refound the National Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression, where we take on the central task of demanding community control of the police, so that anytime somebody is wrongly accused of a crime, or they're wrongly detained, or they have a family member that's taken from them, we can come together as a country and demand CPAC, so that we can actually have a chance at getting justice on our side. Well,
thank you so much, Christina, for sharing a little bit about the work that you all are doing down there in Jacksonville.
Yeah, thank you. I think one of the slides was missing, but basically all I was going to say was that the demand for community control of the police is something that's very important for us, because to demilitarize, defund, abolish the police, if we so choose, you have to have control of that institution first. So we're just going to keep pushing for community control of the police. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So Jacksonville Community Action Committee, they're doing some incredible work down there. I just want to quickly name that Black Futures Lab is a 501c3 organization, so we do not do any partisan work or lobbying whatsoever. But if you all do want to learn more about the work that Jacksonville Community Action Center is doing, our action committee is doing down in Jacksonville, we are going to drop the links to stay plugged in with those organizations a little later in the program. So stay tuned, you'll get that information so that you can follow up if you're interested. Right now, I'm going to welcome Zola Richardson from Reclaim the Black and Black Visions Collective to talk to us a little bit about, now that we understand, where we're divesting from, what are we investing into? So it'd be great if you could break down for us, what do we mean by abolish, defund, and reform? For folks who are new to this, who want to understand what this actually means and how it can transform our communities, it would be great if you could share that with us.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. So I'm stationed here I live here in Minneapolis, and I am the digital organizer at Reclaim the Block, and we organize around policies that strengthen community-led safety initiatives and reduce the reliance on police departments, basically. Here in Minneapolis, we've after the murder of George Floyd, we got organized really specifically when it came to changing the charter here. And so I just want to, before I start, I want to encourage everybody to get involved with what's going on in their city and the budget process in their cities, because it's like a people-powered movement, and we all, with collective effort, can reallocate all this money that gets funneled into policing. So I'll start with the first slide is kind of the vision. As we heard, there are a lot of barriers to unrooting police from our cities and counties and towns. But I want to take a moment and reground in our goal. What is our vision? it's not simply the absence of police, but the presence of a safe and healthy world for everyone. Most of us want the same thing, to live in a safe community where we all can thrive. And on the next slide, we can talk about what's kind of keeping us from this vision. For too long, city leaders have pushed city dollars away from communities and into policing. In Minneapolis, the Minneapolis Police Department had a $193 million budget. And so our work has been to, for years, we're going to the budget hearings to demand that it's decreased drastically. Our communities are and feel the safest when everyone has a roof over their heads, food on the table, and the care for their health and well-being that they need. Our cities should spend our tax dollars on resources like housing, mental health resources, labor protections, and other tools that help people lead stable, safe, and dignified lives. This way, we prevent emergencies from happening before they even start. For some quote-unquote crimes, it can be difficult to trace their logic, but the vast majority of crime is predictable. Their indicators are knowable. When employment is up, so are property crimes. As wealth disparities increase, so do drug-related offenses. The root for almost all crimes can be traced back to some level of economic strife. So one way to prevent the kind of harm that so-called crime can cause is by addressing people's needs. On the next slide, we're going to start to dive into what reform, defund, and abolition means. I wanted to keep this dense, but like really accessible and simple, because I know it can feel so big and difficult to make sense of. So we'll use like reform as it pertains to prisons in this first example. Reforming the prison entails changing its existence, practices to make the system a better one. Abolishing the prison entails dismantling it wholesale. Reformers object to how the prison is administered. Abolitionists object to the prison's very existence. The central tension of police abolition versus reform comes down to a single question. Is the work of activists to create safer, more community-friendly versions of the same system that have already claimed and destroyed countless Black lives, or is it to reimagine them from the ground up? History is a useful guide here. Community groups in the 1960s also demanded civilian review boards, better training, and community policing initiatives. Plenty of advocates, some in good faith and some not, want to lean into reforms now. Princeton professor Naomi Murakawa said it best when she was quoted in Derica Purnell's recent Atlantic article, quote, "At best, these reforms discourage certain techniques of killing, but they don't condemn the fact of police killing. Ban the chokehold, but allow murder with guns and tasers and police vans. The analogy here is to death penalty reformers who improve the noose with the electric chair and then improve the electric chair with chemical cocktails," end quote. Further, I'd add that traditionally improving the noose has only ever added to police budgets. Reform is expensive. Body cameras, extensive implicit bias trainings, and wellness opportunities like meditation and yoga are all footed by taxpayers. For example, the initial purchase of police body cameras here in Minneapolis cost the city $4 million in 2016. This doesn't account for the replacement of the cameras, the data storage, and the staff costs associated with the hours and hours of reviews that's needed, which go unreviewed often. And the police are still not hesitant to kill Black and brown people, whether there's bystander cell phone footage or their own body camera footage. I want to go into what about community control of the police a little bit, because sometimes it can seem really appealing, and my lens is kind of like, it also isn't helpful. So this is a quote from Community Policing and Other Fairy Tales, which is a collection of comics and stories for a police-free world curated by the organization here, MPD 150. When police are in the news for something bad, whether that's brutality, profiling, or other kinds of misconduct, we often hear calls for more community policing. The image of the cop walking his beat, knowing the names of the people in the neighborhood, and becoming a trusted member of the community. This is an attractive story for a lot of people, but it's also full of holes. Community policing is a police strategy meant to counter community suspicion and hostility caused by police racism, violence, and harassment. It arose alongside the increased impoverishment of Black, Brown, and poor communities as the friendly face of racialized mass incarceration. It is a strategy to calm the outrage of communities facing structural injustice while suppressing efforts to challenge that injustice. It's about optics, not meaningful policy. So I think kind of every time the nation is grieving more and more police murders, often the police show this narrative of, oh, look at us, we're in the community, we're handing out ice cream, we're friendly, we're good, and it can be distracting. And then the next slide is just kind of like the full circle of police reform and how it's kind of this endless cycle, over and over and over, because we see it happen endlessly. And then more people are dying, or more people are brutalized. And then so our lens here at Reclaim the Block and other organizations is focused on abolition and defunding. When we say defund the police, we mean reducing the size and budgets and power of all institutions that surveil, police, and punish and incarcerate and kill Black people to zero, and investing in and building entirely new community infrastructures that will produce genuine safety and sustainability for our communities. On the next slide, I want to get back to the concept of addressing people's needs. Local Minneapolis artist and member of MPD 150, Ricardo Levins Morales, has a quote that sums up the defund movement pretty succinctly. No one gets seconds until everyone gets firsts. I'm going to say that one more time. No one gets seconds until everyone gets firsts. It is so simple. Why should the police gorge themselves on new riot gear and armored vehicles and expensive de-escalation trainings that they do heed, especially as our communities starve? People all over the city in Minneapolis are living in tents, and there are sanctuaries being built with mutual aid efforts, and all of these beautiful mutual aid organizing could be sustainable if we had the funds for it. And there's just extremely limited access to affordable and healthy housing and food, and people are denied loans instead, thus access to building wealth for their families. And the list really goes on and on. The next slide here are some ways, some ideas to reallocate police money. And the funny thing about everyone getting first is that once everyone has, then we find ourselves not needing a vast portion of the current police services. So we can go on to the next slide, the abolition side. What do we want the new system to be founded on? I think when we think about abolition, people are kind of like, okay, that means everything's gone and there's nothing. But if you're, paying attention and really looking at your community, you're seeing how so many folks are being supported outside of the police, and how so often the police aren't qualified to be in our communities, and often they don't live in communities of color either. And I wanna kind of use this quote. There was this amazing article called "The Abolition Movement" that was recently published in Vanity Fair by Josie Duffy Rice, and she really sums up abolition in a way that I never have heard before. So I'm just going to read this. Abolition seeks to eradicate this Jim Crow system of public safety, not merely a two-tiered system, but a system where one tier benefits by extracting from the other, to reform policing, to subject it to biased training of dubious import, to push for the return of an illusory past where officer-friendly provided sanctuary is to attempt to patch up the more nefarious features of a system that should be obsolete. Without the history of policies and practices that make up white supremacy, without enslavement and slave patrols, without Black codes and oh my gosh, I cannot, sorry, I need to drink some water quick. Miscegenation laws, without poll taxes and courthouse lynchings, without redlining and housing segregation, without mass incarceration, policing as we know it would not exist. And that really sums up abolition, being rooted deeply in white supremacy. And I don't think that we can really talk about organizing without a Black queer feminist lens. So in the next slide, there's this clip from Charlene Carruthers. And what the Black queer feminist lens is a political theory and practice developed out of Black feminist and LGBTQ movements for liberation. Together, this praxis is like putting on a pair of glasses in order to understand the conditions of Black people and what we must transform in order to liberate all oppressed people. Lenses of any kind impact how we see the world. They magnify, protect, and clarify. So what really this also means is taking the most marginalized and putting them at the center of all movement and amplifying all of their voices first, so we can exist in a safer and healthy world. If you want to play the clip, Brittany, that'd be great.
You cannot talk about Black organizing without talking about the margins in our community, particularly we talk about LGBTQ folks and women and femme folks. You cannot talk about racial justice without talking about economic justice. Whenever you're at a table and you look around and you see who's there, you ask the question, who isn't here? Black folks will not be free if we continue to tell incomplete stories about what's happening in our communities and what's happening to our people. Because in centering LGBTQ folks and women and children and undocumented Black people, and the list goes on, disabled Black people, we actually allow ourselves to tell more complete stories. And in telling more complete stories, we're able to develop more complete solutions.
Thank you all for having me.
Thank you so much, Zola, for sharing this information with us so that people could have a better understanding of what we're demanding when people say defund and reinvest into Black communities. I think for a lot of people, this is really, really helpful. So I appreciate you coming on to spread this knowledge to folks. And now I'm going to turn it over to Black Futures Lab very own political director, Kiana Gregory, to talk to us a little bit about policy, give us a basic policy roadmap to how policy can really impact how our communities are policed. So Kiana, thank you for joining us tonight. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, B. Hi, everyone. Happy Friday evening. I hopped on the call a little bit late because y'all, can I just tell you, I have been on a 7-hour Zoom chat since 12 Eastern Standard Time. So I'm really excited to be with y'all. I want to make this next section as interactive and interesting as possible. As Brittany said, I really want to talk about policy. I know it's not that sexy, but at the end of the day, policy is powerful. And it is the reason why we do a lot of the work, both at the lab and through our C4, the Action Fund. So let me start with a little bit of background. In 2018, we conducted a Black census. And it turned out to be the largest independent survey of Black people in America since Reconstruction. So approximately 155 years. And we were able to talk to over 30,000 of us across all 50 states. And we said, tell us what your aspirations are. Tell us what you think are some of the greatest policy and political challenges facing Black communities today. And y'all 100% heeded the call. It's very rare for those of you all who really enjoy politics and pay attention to all of the polling and the horse races. It is incredibly difficult to talk to 30,000 people. So this is a real sample of how we are feeling about what's happening in the world. So we took that information and some of the findings really helped us to do a couple of things. To first of all, clarify the diversity of issues that Black people across this country care about. It really helped us to amplify some of the concerns and aspirations of some of the most politically and civically engaged. And last but not least, it really revealed to us some of the tangible solutions to the challenges facing our communities. And what we've done with all of that data is translated that into our Black Agenda 2020. So I said earlier that I wanted this to be interactive. This is where it starts. So get your index finger ready and get ready for the chat. I'm just curious to know if anyone on this call actually participated in the census. Hit me in the chat if you did, because we're about to get into some of the top findings from the census. I'm gonna start really broadly and talk about a bunch. Oh, yay, some folks did. I love it, I love it. Angela, Pamela, yes. Okay, so we're gonna start with some of those findings because I'm not sure if you've actually seen the results. Okay, Tucson. I also want to tell you that they are available on our website. I'm gonna ask Dallas, our brilliant digital organizer, to drop the link to the census in the chat so that if you haven't had an opportunity to look at some of this data for yourself, you can later and really absorb it. But let me start with some of the highlights. So this is not going to surprise anyone, but 9 in 10 of our Black census respondents, so essentially 90% of you all told us that wages are too low to sustain a family. And that's one of the major problems facing the Black community. And the vast majority of us, 85%, actually support raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, which still feels, let's be honest, insufficient, right? Especially in the middle of COVID and everything that is happening. But what I will say is that it is rare to get 30,000 people to agree to anything, right? So 90% of 30,000 people saying this is impactful and it matters. And when we can put numbers like this in front of elected officials and in front of people who actually create policy, it has impact because the number is so large, it can't be ignored. Moving on to the next one, 85% of us said that rising college costs are a major problem in the community. And a similar percentage, 84%, recommend making college more affordable. 85% agree that the lack of affordable healthcare is a huge problem. And 90% of us, again, huge numbers, believe that it is the government's role to provide healthcare for all Americans. And again, that happens through policy. I imagine that we are all familiar with the ACA and the good that that has done. It is a brilliant piece of legislation and it can still be better. Again, almost 9 in, oh, I'm sorry, Brittany. Go back one more time for me. Yeah, thank you. Last one. Almost 9 in 10 folks say that the lack of affordable housing is a problem in the community, 86%. And 87% of us agree that the government has a role to play in adequate housing. If you all have been watching the news, you all know that housing has never been more perilous. Some experts are estimating that up to 40 million Americans might experience some level of homelessness over the next few months because of the impact that COVID-19 has had on our communities. And we know that it has had a disproportionate impact on Black and Brown communities. So housing is going to be an incredibly important issue over the next few months, and policy is the way that we will halt evictions and that we will make sure that people can safely shelter in place, which sadly is one of the only protections that we have against the Rona at this point. So those are some highlights. I now want to go into some of the policy findings that were more related to the criminal justice system. 83% of Black census respondents said that the excessive use of force by police officers and police officers killing people are incredibly big problems in the community. And we know that it's true because it's rare that a day goes by where we are not hit with some video or some horror story about how our lives have been taken unjustly. 73% of respondents agree that holding police officers responsible for misconduct would improve police community relations, while 60% favor requiring police officers to wear body cameras. Again, all things that happen through policy shifts. 85% of respondents support the Black Lives Matter movement, and more than 4 in 5 Black census respondents favor restoring the rights of formerly incarcerated people to vote. And I just want to give you all a stat about allowing formerly incarcerated citizens the right to vote. This impacts over 2 million Black people. 2.2 million Black people have been permitted the right to vote after serving their time. Can you even absorb that number? It is huge. And it is clearly disenfranchising our community at unacceptable levels. And the way we change it is through policy remedies. Actually, 3 out of 4 of the things that we have listed on this slide have clear policy remedies that can make them better. So now I want to quickly talk just a little bit about the Black Agenda 2020, because as I mentioned earlier, we took all of the amazing data from the census and we translated it into this advocacy and policy roadmap, both for legislators, but also for us, for activists, for people in our communities who care about what's happening day to day. We wanted you to have a tangible guide that you could look at, whether you were thinking about education or housing or policing, real data that you could fall back on and take to the decision makers in your communities and say, this is what is happening. These are the fixes that we know work. Now, what are you gonna do? So I just wanna give you a taste of what's happening with the Black Agenda in terms of policy. There's lots more there, but I only have 10 minutes, so I wanted to give you the highlights and really encourage you all, when you have a moment, to go back and take a look. So first of all, we believe that investing in community safety, prevention, and justice rather than the penal system is the right way to go. It would have hugely valuable impacts. We want to fund state and national data collection systems that track police stops, use of force data, crime sentences imposed, and diversion programs. And we want that data to be disaggregated by race, ethnicity, and disability. We want to redirect $20 billion from military and war spending into prevention programs that can improve community well-being and really focus in on those issues that sometimes form the root causes of crime. And I know a lot of my other other speakers spoke about this, so I'm not gonna bore you with additional details. We need to fund violence reduction programs that reduce police contact to the minimum necessary to secure safe communities, eliminate mandatory minimum sentences, increase funding and oversight of reentry programs, and stop using government funding, incentives, and other public resources to build and open new jails and prisons. And you all, I apologize, but I think my dog was just in an accident, and so I need to go check on him. But the message that I want to leave you with is that policy is incredibly powerful. And we have, thanks to 30,000 of you, a policy roadmap that can help us achieve what we all want to achieve, which is dignity and safety for all Black communities. And now I'm gonna run and check on my baby, but I wish you all an amazing Friday evening. And I hope that you will take some time to read the census and the Black agenda.
Thank you, Kiana. I really hope your dog is okay. All right. So like Kiana said, policy is not sexy at all, really, but it is so important to our communities and to transform the things that impact our lives. Speaking of policy, I just want to shout out the Black Institute, the Black Policy Institute that's been recently launched by Black Futures Lab and Black to the Future Action Fund. We have over 35 fellows in our program right now, Zola Richardson included, who are going to be doing some really incredible work over the next several months. So keep your eye out for the Black Public Policy Institute from our organization. So we have a little bit of time left for Q&A. If you have not already dropped a question into the Q&A box, feel free to do so. I'm going to see what we have here now, and I'm just going to throw these questions to our panel, and whoever wants to answer, go ahead and take a shot at it. So let's see. So someone wants to know, how do they get involved in budgets in their neighborhood? Who wants to take that?
Hi, I can speak a little bit to that. So for example, here in Miami, there's usually like a county budget process, municipal like budget process. So let's say like if you live in New York, municipalities would be like the different boroughs. There's also like a city budget process. So there are different budget processes, and it's best to see what district you live in and which budget process corresponds to you and most affects you. Right now here in the state of Florida, where we are undergoing budget hearings and budget processes where county officials and city officials are deciding you know, where to allocate funding and resources into. So sadly, these hearings are not publicized the way they should be. You know, they're not as accessible as they should be. But I really do recommend that you look up your county budget cycle and your city budget cycles and see, maybe try to like look into the general budget and where the monies are being allocated to. And then maybe, you know, you can register to speak and you can make a public comment as to where you wish those monies, where you wish to see those monies allocated. Because honestly, people don't participate enough, and it's not really the people's fault. There's a lot of obstacles in the way for folks to be able to be better grounded with the budget process that affects their lives, our lives. So I do recommend you try and, you know, research on as to like when the budget hearings are going to be going on in your area, and try to at least do public comment, you know, call your commissioners, let them know your opinions. And honestly, try and get involved with any local organization that you have in your community, any revolutionary organization that is trying to change the material conditions of their community, of your community.
Thank you for such a thorough answer, Banny. All right, you all, we have another question. How do you see the fight for abolition between cities and their surrounding suburbs? In what ways can people work together across city and suburb lines? And in what ways do they need to focus on their own specific community? Anyone want to take that one?
I can speak to that as well. I honestly feel that, first of all, there are national efforts and organizations that hold you know, different different how would you say, like different meetings, different trainings, like what we're on right now, where, you know, organizations nationally can get together to discuss strategy, to discuss, how we're responding to this moment. Like defunding the police. This is not a new demand, as my colleagues have been saying throughout this call. There are folks who have been putting in years of work into this. So it's really best to try and get grounded with those who have been putting in work. And also, the question that was previously offered, a good way to really try and get involved in this would be to try and take power from these institutions that govern us. And really a good way to take power from them is to take their money. So, getting back that money, that it is our money, and advocating so that those resources can be properly distributed to really meet the needs of our community. So what I say is, try and strategize in a national level with other organizations and learn from them, learn, their success stories and what failures they've had. And also, locally, try and get grounded with organizations that have been doing this work, to be able to assist in whatever strategies they have going on.
Thank you again, Danny. We have time for one more question. Someone asked, I think this is a really good question, and I think a lot of people are probably thinking the same thing. Someone said, I'm trying to wrap my head around the notion of not having a police presence in a community. Should this be a community decision?
Hi. I can chime in a little bit on that. I think that we are from conception, like police are there. So it's really difficult to wrap our heads around what safety looks like without them. And I think kind of diving in and thinking about how police, like what exactly they do, and kind of do your own personal pros and cons internally, and if they ever actually come in and stop something bad from happening. From my experience, that's not what's happening. So it's kind of this radical imagination paired with absolutely every single person should be involved in this decision making. I think that it is vital to be involved with your community and for all community voices to have to be there, because it is a big and full and complex and nuanced thing. And yeah, it's important for everybody to chime in, and it's important for everybody to get involved with their community and organize around that. I think community conversations are really important when it comes to what it looks like to have a police-free world.
If I could chime in too on that really quick, when I think about a police-free world for the Black community, I start thinking about the plan of the Black Panther movement in Oakland. And I think about like how they were, giving breakfast and lunch, feeding the community, which is very important in our communities right now, because a lot of us live in communities that are starved and don't have any food restaurants or grocery stores. So I think that for us as a Black community who now is facing a lot of police brutality and misuse of power, I would love to see us take action to policing our own communities. Just my thoughts on that. And it looks like Christina wants to say something, so I'm gonna let her go too.
I was just gonna say, once you have control of an institution, then you decide how it works. So if you're afraid of the idea of not having police, or, the institution of police is racist and it doesn't serve us. So we need to take back that institution and make it ours. You know what I mean? Like, so that can look like whatever the community decides it looks like. But, once you have community control of the police, then you can decide where to go from there.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for responding to that question. I really appreciated the person who asked that question because I know a lot of times that is the question people want to know. So thanks everybody for responding. We don't have any more time for Q&A. I do want to let folks know who have asked about the Black Census data. We do have a form that you can fill out if you would like to receive access to the data. I will make sure that that link is included in the follow-up email. I want to go ahead and hand it over to Carlton Riley, who really helped bring this amazing event together so that they can close this out with some next steps and what you can do to plug into the work of New Florida Majority and our partners who helped make this event possible. Carlton?
Hello, everyone. Hey, my name is Carlton. Yeah, I'm from the New Florida Majority, and I just wanted to give you a look at what you can do next to make sure that you are fully engaged and know what's going on in your area. First off, I think that we have all seen how powerful a Black agenda can be to support our communities. So, if you haven't already, please go online. The website is on the screen right here, and you can go and sign up to show your support for the Black agenda and make sure that more politicians are paying attention to our community's needs. And the other thing that we have to do is we have to use that same political power that we already have through voting and make sure that we are being heard. So we are encouraging everyone, of course, to make sure that their registration for voting is up to date. If you live in Florida, you can go to the other link on the screen here at newmajority.vote. That is a great location to find out where your polling locations are to update your voter preferences if you want to vote by mail. I think that we're all concerned about coronavirus, and so that's a great way to avoid, crowded public spaces. And then also we have our websites, of course. You can always find us online. Most of these organizations are in Florida. So we have the New Florida Majority, the Jacksonville Community Action Committee, and Dream Defenders, who are all in Florida and who are all very happy to show and support anyone in Florida who wants to get involved. We also want to send out so much thanks to Reclaim the Block and Black Visions Collective from Minnesota, and from the Black Futures Lab, who nationally has been leading us in making sure that we take back control over our politics and continue to grow. And we're going to be sending out that information as well.
All right, and before we wrap up with our last DJ set, which by the way, I hope you stay on to really listen and jam out with us for the last 10 minutes or so. But we have another event next Thursday. It's called Fight Back Voter Suppression During a Global Pandemic. It's gonna be super important, so you can register at bit.ly/voting in Rona and get registered so that you can join us for a conversation around disinformation, misinformation, and the elections. We're gonna have some conversations about how to talk to family and friends about this upcoming election and all the things that you need to know that they don't really want us to know. Thanks to all the confusion that's going on out here, it's a lot that we have to clear up. So get registered, join us next Thursday, and we're going to rock out to the Whiskey Chick. Thank you all for joining us so much on your Friday evening. I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend.
Let's get started.
You are now rocking with the Whiskey Chick.
Yeah, this is my palace. Champagne in my chalice. I got it all covered like a wedding band. Wonderland, so my alias is Alice. And we gon' start a mother riot. Or we gon' have to put them on a diet. Look at that, I guarantee I got them quiet. Look at that, I guarantee they all inspired. A-Town made it out there. Straight out Kansas City, yeah, we made it out there. Celebrated, graduated, made it past fail. Sassy, classy, Kool-Aid with the kale. Mama was a G, she was cleaning hotels. Papa was a driver, I was working retail. Kept us in the back of the store, we ain't hitting no more moonlit. Already got an Oscar for the Casa. Running down Grammys with the family. Probably give a Tony to the homies. Probably get an Emmy dedicated to the highly melanated. Arc Android orchestrated. Yeah, we highly melanated. Arc Android orchestrated. Yeah, Gemini still jamming. Box office numbers and they doing outstanding. Running out of space on the damn bandwagon. Remember when they used to say I look too mannish? Black girl magic, y'all can't stand it. Y'all can't ban it. Made out like a bandit. They've been trying hard just to make us all vanish. I suggest they put a flag on a whole nother planet. Jane Bond, never Jane Doe. And I Jane Go.
It's the Whiskey Chick.
King, you know it. King already, you know it. Top everything, you know it. King already, you know it. My body so got a king body. Body gon' shine, bling, bling body. Calling all the shots, ring, ring body. Crown on your head, got a king body. Don't live a king, you a king, you know it. King already, my baby, you know it. Top everything, you know it. King already, you know it. Shine already, it's time already. The line already, it's time already. Shine already, it's time already. The line already, it's time already.
Try to stop it, me say no, no, no. Royalty say don't you, no, no, no. Try to stop it, me say go, 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 go. Bubble up and watch it go, go, everything go, go. Be ruler, yeah. Everybody on the conquer, yeah. Every king be stronger, yeah. King the rule them longer, yeah. Remember who you are, oh. Real king always be no. If I be brave, I show your people my love. You sang my ready, I say you sang my ready. You line already, I say you line already. Only you got the remedy, I say you got the remedy. Shine your body, shine your body.
Long live the king, you know it. King already, you know it. Top everything, you know it. King already, you know it. My body so got a king body. Body gon' shine, bling, bling body. Calling on the shots, ring, ring body. Crown on your head, got a king body.
It's the Whiskey Chick.
Come on.
I need someone, somebody to help me come and turn my life around.
I feel like having some church up in here. Come on, chat.
I can't explain it. I can't obtain it. Jesus, your love is so, it's so amazing. It gets me high up to the sky.
Hallelujah.
And when I think about your goodness, it makes me wanna stop.
You can't take my joy, devil. Makes me clap.
Makes me clap my hands. Makes me wanna dance.
Oh, you better put them hands together and have the Holy Ghost party with me.
My brother, can't you see? I've got the victory.
No weapon formed against me shall prosper. I'm more than a conqueror. Can I get a witness up in here? Woo!
Lately, I've been going through something that's really got me down.
Put your hands together. Put your hands together.
I need someone, somebody to help me come and turn my life around.
Hallelujah. Come on and say it with me, GP. I can't
explain it.
Can't obtain it.
I can't obtain it.
Jesus, your love.
Jesus, your love is so,
hallelujah.
it's so amazing.
What does it do, y'all?
It gets me high.
Where to, y'all?
Up to the sky.
Oh, when I think of it, come on and tell me what you want to do. Oh, yeah. Put them together.
Make me clap my hands. Make me wanna dance.
Put your hands together. Come on. Put your hands together.
You are now rocking with the Whiskey Chick.
This is dedication. This is anti-hesitation. It's a real celebration. It's a dime block declaration. 59th and 5th Ave granny house with vanilla wafers. It's the remedy to separation. Tupac of my generation. Blue pill in the fucking matrix. Red rose in the great pavement. Young black trapped and he can't change it. Know he a genius, he just can't claim it. Cause they left him no platforms to explain it. He frustrated so he get faded. But deep down inside he know you can't fade him. How long should I stay dedicated? How long till opportunity meet preparation? I need some real reparations. Or I run up in your bank just for recreation. Dedication, hard work, plus patience. To some more of my sacrifice, I'm done waiting. Told you that I wasn't playing. Now you hear what I've been saying. Dedication. Dedication.
It's the Whiskey Chick.
hang and throw them bones on the ground. Am I a freak? Am I more than a freak? Sit round, quit. Am I a freak? Don't just forget to me down. I cut it up, don't cut me down. Yeah, I wanna be. Is it peculiar that she twerk in the mirror? And am I weird to dance alone late at night? And is it true we're all insane? If I just tell them no we ain't and get down. I heard this life is just a play with no rehearsal. I wonder will this be my final act tonight? And tell me what's the price of fame? Am I a sinner with my skirt on the ground? Am I a freak for that? But am I a freak? Am I a freak? Forget deep down. I'm cutting up, don't cut. Even when they touch you down, you got to carry on.
Book of Revelation, chapter 7, verses 16 and 17.
It's the Whiskey
They
Chick.
shall hunger no more, neither shall they thirst anymore. Preach, preacher, for God shall wipe away, yes sir, every tear from their eye. Yes sir, get ready for the revolution. Come on, what you say now?
It's the Whiskey Chick.
You want a revolution? So do you want a revolution? Come on. Say what? Do you want a revolution? Come on, do you want a revolution?
Sick and tired of my brothers killing each other. Sick and tired of daddies leaving babies with their mothers. Wanna lay around and play around. It's a bunny, you think you should understand. Sick and tired of the church talking religion, but yet they talk about each other. Make a decision. No. Two races of no. No. Come on.